YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this. We have the T-28 re-released at 1.2 meters from Horizon Hobby. Obviously, we got flaps on this one, unlike the 1.1 meter. And of course, retracts. Eat your heart out. Beautiful. Love this plane. Oh, and then there's a few other little details. We're gonna go ahead and show that right now. Oh yeah, there's that detail. Very, very cool. And the wind is pushing us. Mother Nature is like, get in the air, Brian. 3200 4S. Look at that thing scream, folks. Love flying this plane. Takeoff flaps. We have a little bit of a crosswind going here, as you can imagine. But look at this thing. It defeats the crosswind. Absolutely no problems. Loving the way this flies. Of course, smart technology with battery alarms and all that jazz. Okay, out of the insane power. That wind feels pretty bad.
It's terrible.
Look at this, going crosswind, no problem, takeoff flaps. Absolutely gorgeous flying plane, very well behaved at slow speeds, out of the flaps. Up toward the clouds, giving you guys a good backdrop here. Hopefully the camera crew is able to capture some of this with that beautiful sun coming right down the runway. Full speed pass, there we go. Over the eagle killing zone, and we'll go around and double back between the house and our filming location. Takeoff flaps, full landing flaps. We're gonna do a nice, slow, dirty pass gear coming out right now. Look how much this thing slows down, folks. Into the wind right now, look how slow that is. It's gonna be so slow we could grab it. Gear going up. Absolutely so slow, love it. Out of the flaps, into the power. Accidentally cycled the gear like a moron. Man, just love the way this bird flies. Stall turn coming. Oh, not that way. Let's try that again. A little bit of rudder. And safe. So, as you know, this plane did not have safe on version 1, or maybe you didn't know that. Now it comes fully equipped with safe. And of course, AS3X. And in our case, thrust reverse as well, which has been added without any modifications beyond setup. We'll show you exactly how to do that. We didn't do a pilot fatigue because I feel like pilot fatigue is a little bit dangerous on a prop plane, full landing flaps and gear. Let's see if we can do a safe landing. You're gonna come back about 4 steps there, camera crew. Right there, perfect, you're good. Look at that. Just 0% throttle, about 10% throttle there just to get it there. And that's all she wrote. Okay, I feel like I didn't have quite enough to overwhelm the wind, so we're gonna go ahead and throttle cut just for safety. And tip it back down. Let's see if we can taxi it out of the grass. I'm not sure how it's gonna do. Take off flaps there. Ooh, that's pretty close to the prop. Yeah. Throttle cut's back on. I don't wanna break the prop because everything is frozen right now. Okay. Absolutely no distance. This thing might as well be a STOL plane. Look at this takeoff. Those are 10-foot cuts on the concrete. Okay, so 20 feet in the air, no problem. Still in safe, out of safe. Gear going up. Can hear that hideous squeal in the cold. Man, that looks good up against the trees, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Obviously, the wind is forcing me to fly a little bit quicker than I'd like, maybe. And that's our timer. Our timer is going to be completely irrelevant. I think we set it to 5 minutes, right?
4.
4? Mm-hmm. Guys, this plane is just a joy to fly. It is absolutely well behaved in almost every aspect. It is pretty much impeccable. And not only that, but it is beautiful. Takeoff flaps are deployed. Sorry for my little stumble and bubble with my words. It's just what happens when it's like 10 degrees and you got 15 miles an hour worth of wind. Okay, out of the takeoff flaps, look at the speed increase. That's 50% throttle. Here's 100%, look at that. Look at the difference in speed, folks. Almost unlimited vertical, amazing. Finally, first battery alarm. $3,200 4S, guys, love the capability range. Okay, we're in AS3X now. Takeoff flaps deployed, landing flaps, and we're gonna keep in the power here. Into reverse thrust. Look at that, folks. Just absolutely love reverse thrust. It's becoming such a cool feature for us, and we're getting so much more used to it. And look at the scale lines on this thing. Just as beautiful as before. Absolutely love this plane. Sorry, taking off, out of the gear, out of the flaps. Just absolutely a joy to fly this plane. If you haven't ever had one before, the T-28 is just an excellent place. It could be a second plane for sure. I'd fly it on 3S if it was your first plane. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend this over the 1.1 dirty pass, gear backup, beautiful. Loving it, folks. That wasn't a full dirty pass, we just had takeoff flaps. Okay, full landing flaps here. Let's just show you how tight you can fly this thing. And we're in wind, folks. We're in pretty heavy wind, actually, I would say. There's some gusts and things. Okay, into the takeoff flaps. This thing is just so well behaved. I just wish the Mother Nature would warm up. Oh, and by the way, we've been in our voltage alarm. You hear it going off again. And we are at 2 minutes and 22 past. Okay, takeoff flaps into landing flaps, gear coming down. We're gonna try to go under the lines if we can get it. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough speed. Oh yeah, get down, there you go, buddy. There you go, buddy. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Guys, it's just phenomenal. Reverse thrust, just a little kiss of it, just so we can slow it down. And look at that beauty, folks. Can you argue with perfection? The only thing that's imperfect about this plane right now is there's no LEDs. And I still don't quite understand that, but it is what it is because we got every single other feature that you could want. And you can always add LEDs if you want, out of the flaps. Okay, guys, it literally hurts. I'm 3 minutes and 9 seconds past. Let's get into the shade there with that. There's our 25% remaining. I bet that would go quick though. It is very cold, even with the nitrile gloves. My hands hurt. And what we'll do is we'll give you this flight and we'll give you our actual True Maiden. I don't even think I have a click of trim in this plane. In fact,
I don't think so.
No, I have none. There is no clicks of trim on any surface. Look at this. It's just amazing, folks. And I gotta say, love the way it flies, love the way it looks, love the way it takes off, love the way it lands, love the thrust reverse, love the smart setup. I mean, everything about this plane is just spot on.
Build was easy.
Build was easy. What we have, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws. I mean, it was just the easiest thing ever.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a plane, look no further than the 1.2 meter. It is just a beautiful T-28 Trojan. I love the livery. I wasn't a big fan of the mouth at first on the nose, but I've come to find that it's kind of cool. It spices it up a little bit, yeah. And I do like the starburst on the tail. It is a slightly different hue of red, which I didn't recognize at first, but it is. And I've always loved the navy livery. Yes, the yellow livery is very cool too, and the 1.1 will give you that if you want it. But you're not gonna get flaps, and you're not gonna get retracts, and you're certainly not gonna, I don't think you have thrust reverse on that, or if it existed, we didn't know about it at the time. So, loving this plane. Definitely check the links in the video description. We're gonna show you one thing as we're doing the Unbox build radio setup. We forgot to mark the front hole. We did plus or minus is what it should have been. And so instead of doing plus or minus, we did point and minus or whatever. Plus. And then it should have been plus and minus. So other than that, this thing is spot on. And then just to show you where the battery is, we'll show you on the 2200 4S as well. We're riding it back here. And my center of gravity's hitting somewhere right about here, and I like it a lot. So it's actually about where the wing peaks off. So a little bit earlier than you would expect for the CG, but I remember on the original 1.2, CG was just almost inconsequential. You could just fly that thing with the battery anywhere in that cavity. So 4,000 battery might be good, might give you a little bit more weight to it. Did notice that the tires chatter a little bit on the runway. I'm not super worried about that right now. It's just so dang cold. Nothing likes to work totally perfect in the cold. And I think if we weren't so cold, we'd probably getting longer battery times too. Now we could have flown this, I'm guessing upwards of 5 minutes longer. That would have been about a 12-minute flight. That's a no BS review. That being said, you'd have to have been pretty conservative on the last 4 to 5 minutes, and it literally hurts right now, so we gotta get out of the cold. But this thing is worth it. It is worth being in the cold for a few minutes so that you guys can see just how good this is. It's being re-released and being brought back to you by Horizon. Thank you, Horizon. Check the link in the video description below. When you buy from those links, you'll help support our channel so we can bring you more and better footage with better quality content, which is what you guys all want. And obviously we thank you, especially to our patrons for supporting us. If you want to become a patron, links right at the top. If you want to do a one-time gift, we have PayPal. But really, we think the most equitable way is just buy these planes when you love them. If you absolutely hate this plane, we have links to a ton of other planes down below and literally 1,500 plus videos for you to enjoy while we freeze our tails off. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the Unbox Build Radio Setup, and we'll have a second flight for you at some point, either at the end of the video or right after this. Thanks for watching. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this. We've got the T-28 Trojan, retracts, tricycle, flaps, and now we have one teeny, tiny, and very, very cool feature that we didn't have before, along with smart technology for all sorts of other cool things. We have reverse thrust, and look how light that nose wheel gets. That's crazy. So we're gonna just get this into position here real quick. A little bit different livery on this plane from the original one that was released many, many, many moons ago. It did not even have safe. Okay, we're in forward thrust. Throttle cuts off, take off flaps, here we go. Oh yes, out of the flaps, out of the gear. Oh yeah, 100% throttle. Got our annoying warning already. 4S power is allowed. Okay, here we go. I haven't even given it a click of trim. 15% throttle, just keep the prop turning. Oh my goodness. Takeoff flaps, landing flaps. Watch the difference in speed. Here we go, full landing flaps going downhill. Look at that slowdown. Gear I could probably land. I'm not going to though, because I want to keep flying. Oh my goodness, I'm loving this plane, just like I used to. See the braking? That's because of our necessary setup in the Avian ESC. This is a smart plane, so it does have lots of telemetry feedback. The alarm will be getting shut off as soon as we get landed. Okay, full landing flaps now. Look at the tight area where you can conduct flying ops. Folks, this is just incredible. Look at this, we're in about a 50-foot area here. A lot of rudder there, a lot of rudder. This is a 1.2 meter. Let's see if we can take a landing here. And reverse thrust just to make it more exciting. Guys, this plane is a joy to fly. It always was before. Takeoff flap still in the air. Look at that, how fast you can do that. Unlimited vertical, 4S, 2200, 30C on the first flight. Depending on if we have enough time for it, we're gonna probably try for a 50C. Cornholes with the best of them. And full landing flaps. Let's slow it down on the way downhill. Get into a little bit of throttle. We're gonna go over the Eagle killing zone here. A little bit past and then around. Just to show you it can be done. Look at this. We do have a little bit of a crosswind there, as you can see from my drift. Absolutely phenomenal flying plane. Up and around our junk pile, also known as hay. Man, that thing is gorgeous. Out of the takeoff flaps. Man, that thing cruises. Man, listen to the presence.
I know.
You know what that noise is? Braking. Hear the prop?
Oh.
Takeoff flaps, landing flaps. Man, that is so tight. Look at this. Look how tight that circle is, folks. I want to see a stall. We don't hardly ever show stalls on this channel, except for when I'm stalling into a tree. Okay, here we go. Here's a stall. 30% throttle, pointing into the wind. Power on. Oh, that stall is so non-existent, guys. That is awesome. It is totally flat. I mean, AS3X obviously has our back. Okay, and we're into safe now. Safe. Oh yeah, beautiful. Totally beautiful. Takeoff flaps, landing flaps. Look at the limited bank angles. This thing practically flies itself. I mean, literally, it practically flies itself. I mean, I'm saying all I'm doing is just kind of pointing at what direction I'm gonna go. Amazing. Into the throttle, out of the safe. I accidentally put the gear out like a dork. Okay, here we go. This is gonna sound like such a stupid comment, guys, but I think this plane needs a bigger battery. As in, I think it's gonna go a lot longer, but the thing is, I think it just needs a heavier pack because it's so capable. Look at this. It just does everything and more. Okay, full landing flaps, about 10% throttle there. And a little bit of rudder to get going straight down the runway, and we'll make that into a touch and go out of the gear and out of the flaps slowly. You hear it? It's oscillating the throttle. Oh, so cool. That is so cool, guys. All right, takeoff flaps coming out. Going in for a nice wide final, nice drawn out, realistic looking landing. We didn't even put one click of trim into this plane. Okay, full landing flaps, not that you need them. Look at this. Look how slow that thing is moving. It's gonna get here someday maybe. A little bit of throttle, a little bit more. I just gotta love the reverse thrust is awesome. But just one thought, guys, reverse thrust will tip this thing over because it's so light on the nose gear. But man, that is so gorgeous. Look at those red and white lines on the prop. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Absolutely love this plane, folks. I loved it when I had it the first time, and I love it again. What a beautiful plane. Be nice to your nose gear, folks. If you're not a super skilled pilot, maybe start with the 1.1 meter. It's still got safe, it's still got AS3X. But I love this 1.2 meter size, excuse me. I love the fact that it's got flaps, love the fact that it just does everything. And then let's look at our voltages. By the way, it is very cold, throttle cuts on. We are at, on a 4S, 13.1 volts, which constitutes just a little bit of throttle left or a little bit of juice left. So, for those of you at home wanting a total dead stick landing, you're probably not gonna completely get that because we'll get warnings first, but let's go ahead and do this. In the air, 50% throttle. We've gotten our first low voltage warning, a pulse. Out of the takeoff flaps, out of the gear. Oh, just absolutely phenomenal. Really energy efficient here. We're about 30% throttle. That's about 28, 29, 30, 35, 40. Takeoff flaps and a nice tight turn. Look at this, look at this. You could reach out and touch it. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I love, love, love the flight characteristics of the T-28. One of my favorite flying planes, which is so weird because in my early part of my RC career, I would have told you I got no love for it. And now, one of my favorites. So weird. I'm telling you, there's something about planes that fly good. Yes, shooting the moon. Oh yeah. It's so awesome, full landing flaps. And the gear going back up. Nothing like a good dirty pass into the takeoff flaps. A lot of rudder, keep that nose pointed at us. Man, that is just gorgeous. Out of the flaps. Another warning, and it is pulsing again. Make no mistake, braking takes power. So don't think you're gonna idle it. You have to go to about 15 to 10 to 5% throttle, and this bird wants to engage in an aerial attack. You got it. Sorry, camera crew. Okay, takeoff flaps. Gear. My hands hurt. How about yours?
It's cold.
Take off landing flap, sorry. About 10% throttle to keep that extra windmilling effect. Oh yeah, reverse thrust. I just love it, guys. This plane is everything I wanted and more. And now that it has safe, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't also have it. Okay, and into forward thrust. Yes, it is the lazy man's tool of the year, reverse thrust. Got to love it. Now, if you're flying grass ops, you might not want to fly it in frozen because I think that the landing gear are gonna not be your friend on the first landing. But I can definitely tell you this, once we get some good soft grass, maybe we'll test that for you. But in the meantime, our human flesh is about to fall off because it's like, feels like about 100 below zero, even though it's not. Throttle cut's on, and look at this, we're at 14.8 volts. We've evidently charged the battery while flying. Not sure how that happens, but the thing is, all I can say is this. That was a pretty long flight. We are currently at 5 minutes and 32 past our 4. So we're gonna call that a 9.5 minute flight. I didn't even get to a total dead stick landing, but I can definitely tell you that if we were to fly this in the warm, we'd probably get just a touch more, but that's 2200 4S, and I feel like that thing is screaming for a bigger battery. That being said, 30C is totally fine. The nitro gloves have helped a little bit. In the cold, it takes off the edge, but once you get cold, there's not much help. Whee! But I love this plane, guys. Horizon, you've done a great job on this plane. Also, I want to point out one detail. In our Unbox build radio setup, which is coming next, or maybe this is at the end, depending on if we get another better video with better sun, we forgot to mark the front. It was plus or minus from the CG marking, which was like 83 or some weird measurement. There was like 83 plus 19 or some weird thing. So we just replicated that to the front too. Our apologies on that, folks. We usually don't screw that up, but we did on this one. And also it seems pretty close to the front of the wing. That being said, I don't think you're gonna have any problems. Pretty much anywhere you put that thing on the battery tray, it's gonna work, okay? That battery is not a huge impact on this plane. In a 4S 2200 size, I flew my old one on 5000 3S numerous times. It is definitely a lot harder on the landing gear though. If you go to a bigger pack, just keep in mind you gotta really grease the landings, but this thing makes it easy to do. Love this plane, love the landing gear doors. I mean, let's see that again. Love it, flat and smooth. Wish there was some nose gear detail beyond just the simulated oleos there and trailing link, but I can definitely say I love the way this plane flies. The only thing it leaves to be desired would be LEDs. But honestly, on this plane, I'm so happy with it. I'm just happy to see it back in service because this plane was one I never wanted to see go. Now it's back. Get yours ordered today. Check the link in the video description below. Buy one for yourself. Help support Brian Phillips RC. Our family's depending on it. There's hungry kids, 4 of them. But also me. But that being said, this plane is so much fun. You're gonna love it. If you've already got the 1.1 meter, you're gonna like this even more. If you haven't got the 1.1 and you're looking for a beginner plane, this plane is probably just a touch outside of the absolute first plane, but you could do it. It is very easy to fly, in my opinion. But I forget sometimes I've been doing this for 7 years. So if you want something that's easier, ask, I will let you know, or just go to our videos, scroll down, find some beginner stuff that you like and go for it. But this plane is amazing. Definitely highly recommended. We'll link to all the video, to the transmitter in the video description. We'll link to the battery that we used, and we will obviously continue on and share the Unbox build and radio setup. Stay tuned. YouTube, we've got a box. This one I've been waiting for a while, and I'm very happy to announce what you may already know because you've seen it fly, that the 1.2 meter is back. The 1.2 meter, oh yeah, T-28 Trojan. Oh yeah, with smart technology now. I'm super excited for this plane. I've been waiting for it for a long time. This is one of the first 1.2s, well, not one of the first, but one of the first 1.2 meter planes that was one of the best that should have never been out of production, and now it's finally back. So super excited to bring this to you. Obviously it's got a new livery on it. And what do we have for specs? This is basically a tricycle. It's got retracts, it's got flaps. Of course, now it's got the addition of the smart technology, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure how in depth the smart technology goes, but it's gonna say right here. Looks like we obviously have ASRX and safe, which is something we didn't have before because this was predated safe select. So that's really cool. So we're obviously gonna have safe, functional retracts with some scaled doors, which that is a big improvement. They did not have that door, I believe, on the original. I don't think they had any doors on the front. I don't know that they do have on the front. We used to just have a guard right here, so I think that's an improvement. Obviously the new livery is different. There's this orange thing, which looks like some sort of a shark mouth on it. I'm not sure what that is from. Looks like we've got smart Avian 70 amp ESC, but I don't know if that means we're gonna be able to do thrust reverse. If it is, we'll find it for you, but I'm super excited to be able to bring this to you. Loved my 1.2, is one of my favorite 1.2 meter planes out of all the planes we've had. I still have it, it still lives to this day, but I was flying along just doing crazy stuff. I think I had a 5,000 milliamp 3S at the time. Obviously this is 3 or 4S capable now, as stated on the package right here. So I was flying along with a 3S 5,000 milliamp hour pack, and it was nuts because the thing did just fine. And I accidentally retracked the gear when I was on a touch and go. I was trying to adjust the flaps and I hit the retracts instead. So I screwed it up and it was never quite the same. And I just kind of moved on from it for a little bit, but it still technically flies. I just never really got it fixed fully. Oh, so I'm so excited to have this one as like one of my favorite planes. So we are gonna set this up. A lot of good artwork on this too, which is really cool. I love it when they catch the retracts like that midway. That is so cool. We're gonna put it like this. Obviously this thing is 1,225 millimeters, so it's a little bit bigger in terms of the wingspan than some of the 1,200 millimeter series. They're usually not exactly 1,200 millimeters, but it does look like they got away from the same color they had been using. Thank you, Horizon, for not folding the manual. That is always appreciated. And I do like that they come in the bags. So that is nice because then I can put spare parts, spare bolts and things like that into the bag, which is really nice. Okay, so very good manuals. This is the page we're gonna be looking at. So as per usual with our bind and fly airplanes, they go pretty quick. I don't know how quick this one's gonna go, but I'm hopeful that we're not gonna have any glue. We should just have a couple of bolts. So very excited. Okay, let's pull this thing out. Oh yeah, look how beautiful that is. Love the dihedral on there. Big, huge, thick wing cord. This is a skill level 2 is what they suggest. I don't know why it's a 2, probably because the 4S really peps it up. Everything is just really, really smooth now. I've noticed that even these mold release bumps are getting so small anymore. And then no decal, this is paint, which is nice because then there's no bumps where those little mold release pieces are. Still no LEDs, that is a bit of a disappointment, but at the same time, amazing, love this plane. I will quickly forget about that drawback. 3-bladed, beautiful prop. That is so sweet. Love the color on the tips. As you can see, we've got the texture on the back. This is a 12/7 prop. Very cool, very scaled details. Love that.
I love that it's squared on the ends.
Guys, check here. There is a bolt pack inside of this little cavity here. So you wanna check for that because it would be easy to miss. And look how many bolts are in the bolt and nut sack.
Nice.
Not very many. That's the way we like it. So we do these unbox build radio setups. We try, especially during the winter, to get them done when the weather's bad or when it's dark like this, so that we can fly when it's nice. And that's one thing. Okay, so carbon fiber, listen. You can hear that twang, that's definitely carbon fiber. It's hard to tell the difference between fiberglass and carbon fiber, except for if it comes to weight and strength. That thing is very stiff. That's gonna be for the wing joiner on the tail. And of course, we've got a little blocking. Horizon does a great job, second to none on packaging. We almost never have issues with Horizon stuff. Oh, that looks so sweet. They didn't switch the pilot, which surprises me. Hey, his eyes don't make him look like he's bug-eyed or anything, which is kind of nice. Look at the instrument cluster. A little bit more detailed on the canopy. I would have liked to see these things line up better, but that's manageable. Just love the way that this plane looks, all the details. This color match is not as good as I would expect to see. I think this starburst is supposed to be a different color. I don't remember if there was a detail here or not, but I just love this plane so much. The exhaust ports, really cool. Obviously the nose gear was a point of contention for a lot of people on the first one. They had trouble getting replacement parts. And so people had to get really creative. So hopefully that's a thing of the past. But I guess we'll have to wait and see kind of how that turns out. We'll look inside of here in just a second, actually. Well, let's do it right now. Big hatch release, which is nice. Kind of surprised with that. That's not very tidy right there. That's surprising. I wonder if it's an early sample thing. Because look at this. This is like almost never sloppy like that on the edge in a Horizon model. So not sure what the deal is. But then look at this. We have a cross on the controls. That is so weird. Look at this. Look at this. What the heck is going on here? This is very weird. You see that? We got to double check that. That does not look right. Okay, then we have the AR631. Excellent. Avian light. I don't know what that means. I hope it means that we have full telemetry feedback, and I hope it means we have thrust reverse. But look at this, folks. This goes in and around where it's more vulnerable. I don't know what they were thinking. That's gonna get changed like immediately, right now. I'm gonna fix it right now because I do not want servo wires going up where they could get tangled. What was that all about? This is going under. Guys, take a few seconds, do this on your own plane. If they put them up here, there's absolutely no reason for that. That needs to go down. Pull the elevator sticker back. This is why you come to Brian Phillips RC. We love working with Horizon. We love working with all these different companies we work with. But boy, I tell you what, you know, you could probably have an assembly line that has 400 instructions to put a plane like this together. This instruction needs to be updated because there is no reason why that should ever be through there. It needs to go the other direction, folks. So I'm sure they'll adjust that when they have a chance. But then I don't understand. Oh, that's overspray. That's black paint from when they sprayed this. So if you see black, it looks like it could be a burn. You always got to investigate and make sure it isn't actually a burn. It's just overspray. Okay, so rudder has an extension. The reason there's an extension there is because it's actually a Y cable. So surprised to see such a long Y cable. We could actually swap that out for a different shorter Y cable, and it would really save a lot of space. And then of course these are gonna be for the ailerons, which is cool that they give us a Y cable for that. Oh no, that's gear. I'm sorry, I take it back. The ailerons are wired up through the wing. So we're gonna see how that goes. And then this is the extra programming port or whatever it is on the Avian ESCs. So then of course we've got some Velcro here. We're gonna do the old trusty method that we've been having such good luck with. And that is to use shelf liner, which you know what the heck, we're just gonna throw caution to the wind and we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. Oh, we don't have the whole tail section out, so I'll just lay this out. Okay. What we've been doing that's been working great, we take this piece of shelf liner and we basically we've just been working through this one piece for what, about the last 10, 15 planes, something like that?
Something like that, quite a while.
And I just take and stick this down onto the shelf liner. Super simple process, doesn't take much time, and it's really quick and easy. Now, I did this a long time ago, but I never did it with the Velcro until recently, and I figured out that worked really nice. I used to pull the Velcro off here. Now, the reason that that's a bummer is that if you do happen to have a battery that has Velcro on it, which I try to avoid, but you know, there are a few that do end up with Velcro on them. then this gives you the flexibility to do either style, which is really cool. Now they do give you 3 straps in here too, just as an, this is the mid-grade straps. They are free. If these things aren't free, the manufacturers need to really be paying attention to that, because this is important, folks. Otherwise it's pretty useless in terms of being able to strap a battery. It makes it really hard to actually get those batteries in here. But look how huge this bay is, guys. Let's just see if we can put a 7006S in here just to show you. Okay, this is obviously not gonna be what you fly this plane with, but just to show you how huge this tray is, look at this. Here's a 7006S. Now, that would not quite fit, but obviously that's a little bit large for this plane too. But just to give you an idea, that is a huge cavity. You could fit some big batteries in there. Do we have a 4000, we have a 5004S. Let's see if a 5004S fits in there. Absolutely no problem getting that thing in there. I know guys are flying these on huge batteries. I like flying mine light on its feet. It's easier on the nose gear, easier to get the CG to work out. Okay, so let's just see. Oh, what happened? That's so strange. Don't cut your hands off, people. Seriously, and if you do not send me pictures of it. I don't want to see it. Please be careful. It's gross. If you do that, please don't send them to me, okay? 2 ways to get hurt in this hobby: on the prop and lipos. Be careful with both, please. That's how we keep this hobby safe. All right, so as you can see, we got the huge battery in there. That's not what's the recommended battery, but as you can see, it goes in there just a little bit of squishing. So if you were gonna legit fly with that battery, which I would not recommend, it's gonna be pretty heavy on the nose gear, you can actually get it in there, which is good. So kudos to Horizon for getting us a big battery tray, and relatively easy. 3 straps is a pain, I must admit. Why not 2? Why not 1? 3 is just kind of like, oh my goodness, it's gonna be a pain. So what you might do is, once you do your shelf liner or your Velcro, you may just go ahead and pull one of those out. I don't know, it just depends on what size pack you're gonna do. But obviously on the 5000 Smart Pack, it comes with an IC5. So if you do that, keep in mind you're not gonna be able to mate it up with the connector, which of course is gonna be the IC3. So you'll have to make an adapter or buy an adapter so that you can plug in. That's one of the very few 4S sizes that actually has the IC5. I don't know why they chose to do that. This is still a 30C pack, but we use this pack in our FMS P40. And that works really nice because there is an an EC5 on that plane. So it works really good for that. So you can see just how simple and easy that trick is. It's not a new trick. I didn't come up with that trick. I'm just sharing it because it's a good idea. And that's true with a lot of the stuff we share here on Brian Phillips RC. We show you guys what we've learned through the years, which comes from a lot of your comments. Leave them in the comment section below. We try to reply to pretty much every comment. It just takes some time for us to make our way through. And I always repack these boxes because I'm anal retentive like that. Yes. Okay, so there's obviously a wing somewhere in here. Don't miss your horizontal stabilizers, folks. It blends right into the color of the foam because it is a white on white, and they were kind of tucked away there nicely. So obviously we've got these. I'm gonna just show you how much strength there is in this. You see how far out? I don't know if you guys can make that out. Carbon fiber goes all the way to the tip almost. Look at that. For a horizontal stabilizer, that's good. So I'm super excited about that. Anytime you get some strength in the tail, you will get better pivots. Very strong pinch hinge, which I know that sounds a little bit counterproductive. A pinch hinge is usually not something you write home about, but I can definitely say, look how much material is there. Not all pinch hinges are made equal, okay? If this was a Dynam, that would already broke off, okay? So just look at that. And then they have a glue reinforced pinch hinge. Yep, it looks like there's glue in that. What they do is they run glue down the seam. I believe that's glue. I'm not 100% certain because it's white on white. It would be hard to see. But there are times when the pinch hinges, they take up too much of the material and you're left with almost nothing. We've run into that problem on a number of different manufacturers, especially Dynam. So that being said, this thing here goes through like that. Looks like we've got a pass-through screw here that's gonna hold it together. This plane in the 1.2 meter size, the tail does make it big. So if you're gonna carry it in the car, retract the gear, throw it flat, this makes it big. So you have to think about that when you're deciding how it's gonna fit with your other aircraft. What we used to do when we were going to the flying fields, we would always take bean bags and we would stick them into the back of our family car. The Traverse is what we were using, a 2011 Traverse. And what we would do is we would lay the bean bag. You see how this is gonna wanna squish down here, okay? So there's not really a trick to totally prevent that, but one thing you can do is if you've fed that through like I did, you'd actually pull that out. Now watch what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this and walk that corner in. Once you walk it in, then you can push this and it'll go, okay? See, there's no damage then. But also, white on white means no damage, no crinkled paint. If this paint was painted here, that would have, you know, popped up and looked crappy. So I'm loving the white choice there. Also, now that you have that one through, you can do this two ways. You can either feed this through and get it in, or you can pull this one back out now that you've compressed that little edge, okay? So that's the trick. Then you get this one in, just like this, kind of work it, just like you did the other one. Once you work it, you get it in position, then you go back through with this. It takes an extra 2 seconds, but then it's a lot easier to get them together. And you can see that wing joiner doesn't like to line up very good, does it now? And if you have trouble getting that wing joiner to go, you can try to push harder, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would pull the wing out and see, obviously this needs to line up in there. So now that we've squished that little edge down, you should be able to just pass it through. Let's see if this goes for us. This was definitely one of my favorite flying 1.2 meters, and I loved the June night. I loved the, what was our first P-51?
The Blondie. The
Blondie, loved the Blondie. That was a great, great plane. And then obviously we had like the was it AT-7 or AT-6?
AT-6.
Sorry, drawing a blank, guys. And I didn't actually care for that one. It didn't fly the way I wanted it to, but it was a good flying plane. And then the Spitfire, one of the things I did wrong when I set that plane up is I went to the inside hole or the middle hole instead of the outside hole on the elevator. It made it way too pitchy. Once we corrected that, night and day difference on that plane. So the F4U Corsair was also very good.
In that size class.
But this by far was my favorite. And it was one of those things where, again, as a kid, I wouldn't have thought much of the T-28, but boy, now that I'm, you know, I've got all these different planes, still one of my go-to flyers, so love it. And by the way, I mean, we were already done with the unboxing. I didn't even tell you guys we're done with the unboxing because we could just kind of transition into the build.
Nope.
But look how simple and easy that is. So love this plane. It's gonna go together so easy that it's just gonna kind of like almost accidentally go together. Look, it's like half built. So as with other planes that we review on this channel, we always try to show you guys the full no BS unbox, build, and radio setup. And this is gonna be no different. Obviously, we've got our tools here. I think we're gonna need a 2mm.
Probably.
So these planes, I mean, if you were a kid growing up, when I grew up, you would have had to build a plane and it would have taken you, let's call it 2 months worth of work on and off, maybe a month worth of work quick. And you would have taken it out to the flying field, immediately crashed it, and then had your dreams shattered. So nowadays you can get something like this, you can be up in the air. This might not be the first plane you get the 1.1 meter. It's a little bit cheaper and you're gonna be able to fly it a lot easier because there's less complexity with no flaps and fixed gear. But at the same time, I want the flaps, I want the fixed gear, and there's no reason you can't make that stuff work. Okay, so just pulling this bag out here. We've got this, long screws, looks like 4 of them. Then we've got the flaps and aileron Y cables. So that's kind of interesting that they didn't include those on the wing. Then we got B, which are the ones that go back here, almost certainly, because these 4 go for the plane. One thing I'm a little bit confused about too, is that when you deal with some of these manufacturers, Horizon is one of the few that has decided to start going with the exact number of screws. I like an extra screw, Horizon, if you're listening. For what these planes cost, an extra screw is probably not gonna make or break the budget. I would recommend you do that because one extra screw is gonna save the day on that off chance that you get shorted. See how it's going in at an angle, but then it straightens right up? Okay, so just going until I start seeing a pucker in the foam right there. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so we're good. Now we're not even gonna hook up the elevator yet because we're gonna wait until the receiver is bound and we have all that stuff set. See how easy that is? If you wanted to take it apart, it wouldn't be hard, but I can tell you this from experience, 1.2 meter planes are your friend if you have to transport them. They're pretty easy to get in and out of cars. The dihedral on this wing does make it take up a lot more room. So what you can do is you can push it up like this and you can fit a whole nother like 50 millimeter, you know, a little hand launch plane, or like this Cessna Citation can go up under here, which is really nice. Use up every space you can. Like I said, we used to use bean bags to do that, and it worked really sharp because you would lay a bean bag on top. You would just put a plane on it, you'd put another bean bag on top of that plane, you'd put it on top of there, and we almost never got, you know, damage to the planes. I mean, from crashing, of course, but not from road rash or whatever.
That's when antennas aren't your friend.
Yes, antennas are definitely not your friend when you're transporting them a lot. And they're always on top of the planes or on the bottom of the planes, just like they would be in real life. So this is both bag A and C. So I'm just gonna go ahead and ignore those letters. For some reason, that's always been a challenge for all the different manufacturers for whatever reason. I don't know why it's such a big deal to just get those a little bit clearer for people. Of course, we've been doing this long enough, we don't really have a big problem with figuring out where things go. There was a knot in that cable, which was nice because then it takes up some of the slack. But I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna undo the slack and I'm gonna get these plugged in right now because there's no reason to have to pass them. It's gonna be really hard. This hole is about 1.25 inches deep, maybe 1.5 inches deep. You're not gonna have a very easy time plugging these in from above. Okay, so remember, brown to brown. So I'm gonna flip that one over. And these have the nice retention clips on them, which is cool. See, brown to brown. Plug it in, and then the other flap is where? Right here. Mm-hmm. So brown's toward me. I'm gonna flip this and make it toward the camera crew. Okay. Make sure that you get good mating, and they're not gonna wanna pop right out. And then slide these down a little bit, because then when they get right up by the receiver, it makes it really hard to see the colors when you need them. Okay, so brown is gonna go toward the airplane this time. These assemblies are so easy though, even from when we started this whole experience. I feel like we've had such a huge improvement in not only the quality of the builds, but the ease of construction. We don't have to glue stuff together near as much as we used to, and when we do, it's like a real minor thing or it's a real easy thing to get together.
Can you verify that second to last one that you just did? Okay, yep, the tag was in my way.
But I've been super happy with the improvements we've seen over the years. Mm-hmm. This smart technology seems like such a gimmick when you first see it, when you first hear about it, but then you start using it and all of a sudden, you know, crappy little voltage alarms become a thing of the past. Like these things, you know, it just becomes a thing of the past, which, I mean, it's not a big deal, but all that stuff adds up and it just becomes a better experience. Mm-hmm. So we're very excited. I'm still not sure why they keep including bind plugs, but I suppose that makes sense for people that don't have the right type of transmitter. Except the transmitter doesn't dictate that you need that. So I guess I'll take them. They're included with the model. All right, so we got to get 4 bolts on, so we're going to pass those wires through here real quick. And I had some questions about this plane stand the other day. This is a super popular Robart plane stand, and this has a PVC pipe or PVC tubes, 2 of them, and then this foam. It can slide, but it's extremely difficult to slide. If you were going to try to slide it, you would need to lubricate this somehow. And I don't want to have lubricant on this, and I don't want to put talc on it necessarily. But as you can see, I can spin it, but it's quite difficult to move. So I was talking about not adjusting it on a small plane the other day. I think we were maybe building a Viper or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I just said it's a little bit too long for that plane. That's not to say that you can't adjust it. It just doesn't really necessarily add a lot. So I just didn't want to adjust it. Okay, so we'll drop that down. And then this wing is one of the easiest ones to drop in because it just goes straight down. And then there's 4 bolts, of course, no extras. Drop them in. And as with most Horizon hobby, especially e-flite planes, we have absolutely no problems getting those things to go in for alignment. And I am gonna grab a 2mm driver here. Super, super easy install. And the one thing that's really nice about this nose gear is if you do go in and destroy it, it's quite easy to work on. Not every plane, it's easy to get to the nose gear. I can say that from experience. So I'm hoping that this has been strengthened somehow from the original design, because I know some guys had some complaints on that. I personally destroyed mine, but I also learned to fly a tricycle with this configuration, didn't I?
Probably.
Because I didn't even have the Apprentice until later on. Because for me, the Apprentice came like way, I mean, I probably had 5 or 6 tricycle planes. So when you're screwing these in, there's a trick. When you start feeling resistance, you know you're getting close. So what I do is I look around this for a pucker. Watch for the pucker here or here, okay? You'll see a pucker here or where it mates up to the next surface. And if you don't see a pucker, you can keep going tighter and tighter until this thing starts pulling down. You see how it's pulling down? See how it's starting to pucker right there, right there. That's usually what I try to do. And then I'll come back here and just kind of work until it's tight. And that's just that telltale sign you need. Very easy build. I can't believe it. It's pretty much done building. We just have to plug a few wires in. And then we're gonna bind it up to our NX8. That's the other question that we get repeatedly. Should I get a DX8, DX6? No, get an NX6. It's more money, but it's going to be supported longer. We don't tell you that because we want you to blow what it would cost to buy another plane. I mean, we want you to have as many planes as you can afford. But the thing is, the NX8 is going to be supported longer. So that's not to say there's anything wrong with the DX8. I have a DX18 in that kit right there. I love it. It's one of my favorite transmitters. But the thing is, my NX8 is what we use. Why do we use it? Because you get an extra channel, you get like an extra couple of switches, and basically that extra channel makes the difference. Plus you got a knob.
Get the NX8 over the 6.
Over the 6, yes. The 6 is great because you actually technically get almost 7 channels. The last channel is not a full channel. It's just like an on-off channel is what they call it, I think. And so there are limitations on that channel. But you can still do a lot of the stuff you need to do. The problem is, if you're spending that kind of money, you'd be crazy to get the NX6 when you can just get the NX8 for a few bucks more.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is when you are thinking about a transmitter, you want to think about maybe getting the 5,000 milliamp hour pack that goes in the back. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but I fly a 5,000 milliamp hour pack. And the voltages on the NX line is lower than the voltage on the old lines. So let me see if I can get this thing popped open. Yeah. So there's a 3.7 volt. And that's one of those things, it's like, 6,000 milliamp hour. So if you guys don't have that, it makes up for a lot of the 2,000 that comes with it, it burns that pretty quick. So you find yourself charging your battery all the time. And so definitely think about that. All right, so let's look together inside of this plane. I might actually rotate this a little bit just so you have a better angle for the people at home. Okay. So as you can see, we've got lots of wires that are just kind of going everywhere. And it's not really hard to get this straightened out because all I'm gonna do is just grab the straight lines that go straight up. I wanna watch out and not damage. Is that cat in my boot?
I was just
show the people. What the heck are you doing, cat?
She's like in your boot.
She's in my boot. Like, what are you doing? That is so weird. I thought there was something strange, something afoot.
Oh my goodness.
Super dorky. So if you look here, we've got, this is gonna be the gear. So it's a Y cable. One of them goes up front to the gear, obviously, to the retract. And then I'm gonna hold these with the browns together, make it a little bit easier. And I think I might actually go on the outside of this wire. That antenna is routed in. It's just kind of a dumb spot, I would say. I might reorganize that at some point. Not like there's a great way to do it, to be perfectly honest. I think it's just kind of the best they could do. And you're not gonna need to get in and out of this cavity hardly ever unless you do another battery for like an FPV system or something. In which case it'd be kind of a convenient spot. Okay. If you guys aren't familiar with what FPV stands for, it stands for first person view. And some people will put cameras on pan and tilts inside of a canopy like this, and then the camera will look out the canopy and you can see what's going on, which is pretty cool. And so of course you have to cut into the bottom. You can take this out and then the pilot of course comes out. You can easily make that work. I don't do a lot of that stuff because I'm not a big fan of FPV myself. Some people love it, it's just not my thing. Okay, so this is ailerons. I don't know, maybe I should go all on the one side. Gosh, I feel like that's gonna bite me later. What do you think? So ailerons are not gonna be port 6. I'm assuming flaps are gonna be port 6, and ailerons are probably going to be sandwiched between elevator and, yep, that's gonna be on channel 2. So you see kind of what I'm doing for cable management. I just sort of find, okay, and then brown goes toward the front of the plane on this one. This is the AR631, by the way, which is available as a regular receiver you can purchase and do as plug and fly in a plane. We do a lot of planes with the AR631 because I figure for $5 more, you get the bigger antenna. I tend to think the antenna is probably a little better. Now the catch is the AR630 does have end pins instead of top pins. And so because it has an internal antenna, I always wonder if that's really gonna be as good, but we haven't had any issues with ours yet, not any of the AR630s. So maybe it's just fine. And plus we tend to put the 630s in smaller planes. Okay, so that's just gonna go into this last channel almost certainly, because I don't know where else it would plug in, since the only plug that's left is the bind plug, okay? Which we don't even need the bind plug in this application. All right, so I'm kind of second guessing myself. What do you think, camera crew? Should I just, it might be easier to just pull the antenna back through. Now, if you're ever dealing with this antenna, that's 28 millimeters, okay? It's a very specific exposed period here. So just be careful about that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my antenna and I'm just gonna carefully kind of walk it back like that so that I don't have that vulnerability that I'm perceiving. I don't know if it's actual vulnerability, but I just don't like the way that they have it routed. So I'm gonna go ahead and change it a little bit with an X-Acto knife and a flat bladed screwdriver and then a little bit of tape. We're just gonna literally take regular run-of-the-mill Scotch tape, nothing special, X-Acto knife, and then a number 2 flat screwdriver. I'm sure you guys got that, or maybe a butter knife, depending on who you are. If you didn't get the joke, you aren't the person. So this is gonna get a little slice and dice, and I'm just gonna make a channel just so that I can just tuck it in without any effort, almost any at all. See, and I'm just gonna work my way through and then just make sure you slice and dice all the way through so that you get a, you know, couple millimeters deep. And I don't even know if I'll make it that far.
Can I turn the flash on?
Yes,
okay.
Please do. Okay, so now as you can see, I've got this little channel here for the antenna to ride in, which is really nice. And I just think it's gonna be a lot better than what the factory was doing for us there. Cable management is one of those things where it's like, it doesn't seem like a big deal until you like cut a cable and then you can't fly as a result of some stupid accident. And then you'll be like, dang it, why didn't I do that awesome idea Brian had? See, should have just done it. Now don't kink that ever, because this is a coax cable. See how I'm just able to walk that right in with almost no effort, see? Okay, so now I can just shoot that back into this open area here. So I'll just make a cut like that so I can just exit right out the back. Normally I'd like to tape over the top of that, but this is totally fine. Yep. And all that's gonna do is just kind of get the antenna out of the busy area here. And then all I have to do is throw a little bit of tape on top of this channel here, just to kind of prevent the antenna from popping out. It won't, but just as a precautionary measure, I don't like having problems that can be easily controlled crop up. So super easy, 2-minute modification, give you a better life. Now, if you look here, we've got all this cable and you're like, geez, that's a lot of cable. I don't like that crap hanging everywhere. Me neither. So what are we gonna do about it? We are going to take and do our best to do a loop so that we end up with one loop. You see this? I'm gonna make one loop like that. Then it goes from the same spot back. Okay, then I'm gonna take the other side. Looks like I can grab that. And I'm gonna take this, and you see all I'm doing is I've just got everything kind of wrapped around my index finger here. And all you gotta do is just do a little teeny bit of cable management, and you will thank me later for having talked you into it. Because look how easy that was. Look, not too bad at all. So now I need to get myself one single zip tie. Probably would have been smart to have the zip tie ahead of time. But in this case, it's not a big deal. We're just gonna grab a zip tie. I'm gonna use a couple small zip ties probably because that's a pretty small application. And then we're gonna use some side cutters. Side cutters. They have another name, but I'm not sure if I can say it. Okay, so we're just gonna take this, see that? Follow it along your index finger. And then you see this extra cable. I don't know if it's gonna go like that or if I need to loop that around. It's kind of a tough one. Might be nice if I could go like this. See how I'm just one more loop and that's through. So this is just one of those things that you don't have to do it real specific, but if you do a little bit extra effort now, it's just gonna make your experience of the plane so much better. Okay. So then we can just tidy that up by pulling it tight, okay? It looks like we got one extra kind of loop down that I'm not crazy about. So maybe what I'll do is one more zip tie on the other side, but I think I'm gonna go for a big zip tie on the outside. And big zip ties are heavier, so don't use a million of them, but. Okay, so we'll just kind of poke that through. Zip ties are your friend. Okay, so we'll just do that. Then we'll cut this right here and make sure you cut it so it's nice and flat so you don't induce lots of slice and dice every time you're in there getting your batteries in and out, okay? Also, you're gonna keep that from being around these servos now. So if you're really concerned about where these things lay, the next thing you can do is you can kind of just squish it. Squish it down into a cavity like this. If you really want it gone and out of the way. That's probably fine right about there. There's just not quite enough to do what I was hoping to do, which was to just kind of squish it into this spot so it'd stay. I don't think we're gonna get that lucky on this one. So I'm gonna move this one zip tie down. See how I moved it off of all those connectors? Means I got a little bit less strength on it. And we're just gonna see if we can rotate the head of this zip tie around. Remember, these are pretty small cables. You don't wanna damage them by pulling the zip tie too tight, but you do wanna take all the movement out. There we go. All right. I think we're gonna be good there. More than one way to skin a cat here too, so not trying to tell everybody there's just one way to do this. You can do it a million different ways. But I just like getting everything tidied up. It's gonna make the plane just look and fly better. Not really fly better at all. Unless, of course, when you're not taming your cables, you end up crashing because you have one unplugged and you don't realize it. Okay, so we can still get to the bind button, which is really nice. Okay, simple. Now we've got the AV and ESC up here. Looks like it's got enough room to breathe, but we'll see if that's a problem later. And that's one thing that you're gonna get from telemetry, hopefully, would be temperature data. If you do need temperature data, that means you're probably pushing it a little bit too hard, but this plane is gonna tempt you to push it hard because it's so fun to fly. You'll notice that we haven't even really opened this except for to show the initial parts. So I don't even know if I care, but we are gonna look in the manual just to show you guys kind of the bind and fly setup process is so easy. And some of you guys are asking me almost every time, why don't you just do the downloadable bind and fly profiles? Well, you can do that if you want, but we're here to teach you how to do what it is that we do on Brian Phillips RC. And what we do is we teach you in a generic way how to set up planes. So yes, you can go to the website. There is Wi-Fi in this thing. So if you have Wi-Fi at your house or whatever, you can turn this on. You can actually get into your Wi-Fi, which we have a review of the NX8 and the NX6. You can see what we think of them. Now, for security reasons, we don't show all that part of the setup anyway, and it's not very hard. But once you have Wi-Fi, you can download them straight from the transmitter. Also, you can get firmware updated there. Keep your firmware up to date if you can. You're gonna get a lot of utilities that you didn't even realize you were missing. Same thing with the DX8 actually for now, DX8, DX6. So if you're flying those and you don't have forward programming, you need to go ahead and update your firmware so you can get that. Okay, so at this point, for assembly reasons, you could put the prop on, but in our case, because we're gonna be doing reverse thrust, I'm just gonna show this and then we'll probably actually leave the prop off on this one, only because of the reverse thrust. Just puts us at a higher level of vulnerability, some injuries. So you see, all you have to do is that. It is so dang easy, okay? So there's that, pretty sweet, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna actually take that off for now. And then one other trick that you wanna definitely do is when you're testing a plane for reverse thrust, you don't want that nut on there because it's gonna shoot off and make a huge mess. And the other thing you can do is take a piece of tape, preferably not a clear one, but I just grabbed a clear one because it was easy. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna basically do this, and that's gonna help you to be able to distinguish which direction it's going. It's not perfect, but it's at least a little bit easier to see than nothing. Although it is clear, so it's a very close to nothing. All right, so without further ado, the next step, we have to do obviously binding it, and we have to do radio setup. So why don't we go ahead and jump into radio setup. We'll pause, get cleaned up, and come right back. Okay, so before we do radio setup, we have to have a battery that we can plug in for testing and setup. So we're gonna use 4S 2200 30C. You can use a higher C pack if you want. Some people have asked in the past, do I need to get the high C packs? Yes, on things like the helicopter, yes. On things like EDF jets, especially twins, yes, get the 100 C packs. It will be money well spent. But on planes like this, I see very little reason to do that. It's probably a waste of money. Just get what's in stock, because that's really the big question these days. Okay, so the CG on this plane is goofy. They have it shown as 83 plus or minus 19 millimeters. So also they show the marking from where the wing box joins the fuse. So it's actually quite clear, which is good for once. That's probably why they show 83 plus or minus 19, okay? So 83 plus or minus 19. Okay, so 83 goes from right here on this right here, okay? So I'm just coming out to where I can just barely make out the mark. I'm gonna go into that seam so it's nice and easy to see. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on both sides, just making sure that I can align this properly with the edge of the wing, okay? Now, plus or minus 19, so 19 plus 83. That's a weird number. Okay, so I think I might have bumped my caliper just a hair. So I went ahead and changed my mark. Okay, so this is the front mark. And we've had very good luck with the way we mark our CG. There are a million different ways to skin that cat too. People use thumbnails, people use all sorts of different things. So 19 on top of 83, of course, would be 102. Okay, 102, this is pretty easy to do in real life. It's just kind of hard to film. You just kind of have to eyeball it because it is definitely hard to line up these areas here. Okay. And to be honest with you, if you're using the provided battery, or not the provided battery, but the recommended battery, you are not gonna have a problem with this plane on CG, I guarantee it. I've never had a problem with my T-28s, any of the T-28s I've ever had. So they just, I don't know, there's certain planes that just don't seem to really care. And that is a pretty big range, actually, if you look at how large this plane is compared to that CG range. We've had planes with a 10mm range in this size class, so. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is obviously, you'd normally, at this point, we'd be testing the CG, but we can't really test it because we don't have the prop on, we don't have everything actually fully assembled. And then the other thing is, some planes want you to test CG with gear up, and some want them to do with gear down. My recommendation is usually to do it with gear down if you can, because that's the way you're gonna be landing. And you kind of need to know if you're gonna upset your CG with the gear down. You can always fly around with the gear down, but you can't land with the gear up. Well, just depends. Depends on the circumstance. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stick this in here, and we'll get that ready for our next step. And you can see that battery is dinky in here. So they recommend this, and that's fine. So that's what we're gonna do, which is ironically the same battery that I would usually recommend in the T-28 1.2 meter. So the 1.1 meter as well, which is the simpler yellow with black highlights, navy livery still. So I like this livery better with the industrial orange. I believe this is called industrial orange. And it's the same color that was on the Dukes of Hazzard car, I believe, if you're looking to get a match. But it's also, it looks like it's red, but it's called industrial orange, I believe. International orange, not industrial orange, sorry. Yeah, my bad. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so this will plug in here, obviously. We're not quite ready to plug it in. We'll go ahead and put this somewhat level just so it looks good. And then obviously we have to jump over, do some radio setup for a couple of minutes, which is super easy. And we'll go ahead and turn on the transmitter. Okay, so we got a little yak on the screen there, yak. Cancel and back takes you to your model menu. Add new model, create. It does take a second for that to happen. That's where you would do your profile if you're gonna do a profile. How are we doing on glare there? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this model select will take you back into the menu we just came from. Also, if you're not sure, you can click, scroll all the way down to system setup, disconnect RF by choosing yes. That light goes off. You can tell that RF is off, meaning the actual radio system that's transmitting through the antenna and all that, it shuts off. That's a safety feature, so you know. It's obviously not speaking to the power being on, it's speaking to the radio being on, okay? So then down here, you can go to model select, which is where we just came from, or you can go to model type, which is what we just chose. If you change that, it's gonna clear your model, all the setup, model type, or model name rather, and now we scroll in, we're using a legacy keyboard. We do have the firmware up to date. There's a different keyboard now. I like the legacy keyboard, so you can go in and select that. So at this point, we're gonna type in T-28 and we'll come right back. Okay, so T-28 Trojan 1.2 meter V2, because this happens to be the V2. And so once you have that, you can just hit the back button, aircraft type. This is where you would look in your manual if you wanna follow along with the manual. This is such an easy setup, I doubt we'll even have to hardly look at it. But it does tell you if you're doing like a plug and fly, this is roughly what they want you to do. They're suggesting a 4-minute timer. That's where you can see your CG. They also have the CG marked in a couple of places usually. And then this is what we do for computerized transmitter setup here, okay? So, all right, so they want throttle cut and the gear channel we need to reverse. And they don't talk about reverse thrust, so I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to do that or not yet. We'll find out here in a minute. And that is something that's done through a back and forth communication through a serial connection, which I'm not 100% sure what they call that yet, but it is a normal wing type, except you have flaps like this. Then next, and we do have a T-28 in here, which is cool. So we can scroll over to the, that's not it. That's the P51. There we are, sweet. Okay, so now I think we're gonna have to set up flight modes. I'm trying to think about this. So we're gonna have gear, flaps, nothing probably, and then I'll use this for my modes. And then if thrust reverse is an option, I'm gonna go on switch G. I'm gonna use switch F for dual rates and expo, and then of course throttle cut's gonna be here. So switch D is where I'm gonna activate it. Switch D, 1, 2, 3, okay. Whoops. Click to acknowledge. And then the spoken flight mode, this is where you can set up what you want it to say for each of the switches. So flight mode 1, in the upward position, I want this to be safe. So I come over here, click cancel, cancel, clears it. And then I can type in safe, which is sensor aided flight envelope, which is a cool tool. It's not necessarily just for beginners, but it is predominantly, I think most beginners use safe. And that automatically levels your plane when you let go, but you can do some other cool things with it. Generally speaking, that's how I show you how to set it up. When you let go of the sticks, it brings it level, but it also limits the bank angle left and right and up and down on the pitch axis. There's also a panic recover that can be turned on. That's a really handy tool. But again, it's a safeguard that you don't need once you've learned to fly. And I really like stabilization, but again, you don't need it. I just like it. So that's what we use. Okay, then you can go in here and actually scroll. You see this big bar? We gotta scroll all the way to the bottom. We'll come right back. Okay, so my camera crew brought up a good point. I usually put AS3X up here. I don't know why I decided to put safe up there. This would be AS3X up here, safe down here, and then we do like an off condition in the middle. So my apologies, camera crew caught that in time. So we're gonna click in here and change this. So we're gonna do AS3X. Now, why do we care what condition the switch is in? Because AS3X and safe, you want them to be in the right direction. Otherwise, you're gonna be doing a lot of work here to type all this stuff in. And then you have to type it back in, which will be a pain, so, okay. So we're gonna go to AS3X with this. By the way, full disclosure, one of the issues I've had with this NX8, and it's a very minor issue, is that every once in a while when I'm scrolling, this thing will skip ahead or skip backward. And so what I did was I used some isopropyl alcohol to clean this because I had this out in the rain. And once I had it out in the rain, I noticed that it started doing that. So I don't know if I got a little bit of like minerals or something in the rainwater and it got on there, or it just washed dirt or oils from your fingers and it came inside of there. So at any rate, I cleaned it with alcohol. It seems to be a little bit better, which is kind of nice. AS3X mode.
AS3X mode.
Okay, then this one I would usually set up like off. Okay. Okay. And then I think we have an off down here, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, everything is at the wrong side, and no, you can't scroll to the top. You have to go all the way down here. Oh, wait, silence. No, I want off. Okay, then this one's gonna be safe. See, double click the cancel, clears it, and you can just scroll this in. But you can see the behavior of the roller has been better since I cleaned it. I don't know if you guys, I know I didn't do it since the last video. I did it since the last video.
Yep, you just did it a couple days ago.
Yeah, exactly. Because I did off camera. It was just one of those things I tried to see if it'd work first. And then we're gonna scroll. But you can see when I'm scrolling, it keeps going the same direction, which is really nice. It was frustrating. And I think occasionally you'll get that with scroll bars, no matter if it's brand new or if it's used a lot. Okay, so then this one's safe. There's safe.
Safe mode off. AS3X
Now, just to be full disclosure, that's gonna control a flight mode, and the flight mode is not assigned to any real action other than the audio event at this point, okay? See how it says back? Click back, click back. You see what happened? I'm stuck in this nesting loop here. See this? Now I'm back out. Am I? No, I'm still. See that? Back. This has happened to me a couple of times. I don't even know what I did different because normally I hit back. See this? I can't get out. This is just one of those weird glitches that I don't even know how to explain it. But look, if I go down to test, everything is working in the menu except for back should take me out. And instead it takes me to a select a category, which means there's no way out. So if this happens to you, turn off your transmitter, let it reboot. I'm glad we caught that on camera finally.
Yeah.
Because that's happened to me, I think once or twice, and I don't know exactly what I do to trigger that error, but it's a weird error. And it's not a big deal because then you just go back down to system setup and pick up where you left off, okay? So we were just getting done doing the spoken flight mode here. Then channel assign, I'm gonna assign flaps to this switch. So I wanna make sure that auxiliary 2 is not automatically defined or attached to switch B. So I'm just gonna inhibit that connection there. And then we'll go out. And first thing we'll do is we'll set up a timer and throttle cut. So throttle cut first because it's in order. Throttle cut there on switch H, click to acknowledge. You'll see the throttle's not moving. And then with throttle cut off, you can see that moving in the little monitor there, okay? So throttle cut's on. Say it out loud, get used to that. It's a very good safety feature. It's super easy to do. And even if your friends make fun of you, you'll be the one laughing as they go to the hospital, which would be kind of weird, but still, safety first, folks. Throttle curve, we don't need. Analog switch setup, we're not gonna mess with. Flap system, we can do. Timer's down here, so we'll do flap system. Okay, so set it to switch B. In my case, I like switch B. See how it's moving. What do they suggest on here? The NX8 is in this section here. So they're suggesting minus 100. Like this. See how it went up first? Okay, and then that's another glitch we've noticed. But again, it's like such a minor thing. And then look at the elevator correction, 2%, very small. It's because this thing has a very good, and it's actually plus, not minus, which is weird. Oh, see, I'm going negative. I need to be going positive. Oops. Okay, here we go. All right, and then we're gonna set the speed to about 2 seconds. If you ever get a plane that wants to balloon really bad and you can't seem to correct it with the correct down elevator, or there's always like a weird disparity between your takeoff flaps and your landing flaps, there's 2 ways you can fix that. It's very important that you use the flap menu because that deployment speed, you know, if you got your flap here, your flap goes down and then your elevator will usually go down too because that'll help counter the balloon. But then if you have an outboard, like an outboard aileron that's set up as flaperons, then you're actually gonna go up with your elevator. And then if you have an inboard flaperon, same thing. So it's weird. It depends on the wing type and the shape and then the body of the airplane as to whether or not you're gonna go up or down. Generally speaking, the elevator goes down and the flaps go down, okay? That induces what's considered to be a balloon, but if you were to slow down enough, the balloon would not be experienced. So that's why the delay is really nice, but that delay delays both functions and by the same rate, which is very big. Some of the other radio systems we've used for Unbox build radio setups, particularly I'm just thinking of Dynam right now. Sorry, I don't mean to beat on Dynam so much today, but they don't have that delay built in. So it's really nice to be able to delay the flaps, but that if your elevator correction isn't tied, it doesn't matter. So you have a balloon effect, even though you can tie it with a mix. So anyway, okay, so what you wanna do is, you can also incidentally slow down an entire control on your Spectrum receivers, but that means all the time it's gonna be slow. not just, yeah. So, but anyway, if you ever have one that just wants to balloon, no matter what you seem to do with this, increase the speed, or excuse me, not increase the speed, but increase the delay. It should say delay or slow or whatever. Because look, as you're deploying the flaps, it's gonna take about 2 seconds, right? You're like, so 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. See, it's about 2 seconds for the full throw, okay? Same thing with the elevator correction, which is minuscule in this case, right? So that's pretty cool. Then we're not gonna worry about mixing, but if you were gonna do mixing on this plane, this maybe be a plane where you'd throw a little mix in with aileron to rudder. If you wanna do that, you would just probably turn it on. And then you would just put like, I don't know, like probably 15%, 20%. Then when you give some aileron, it's gonna help kind of kick the tail around. I've kind of gotten away from that in my, as I've gotten a little bit more skilled as a pilot. I like to be able to control, and so I will, move that myself, and then I can counter it a little easier. If you have a preset mix in there, you have to undo some of that when you're trying to do really, really fast passes and knife edges and stuff. Okay, so what else? Timer, they suggest 4 minutes, but this should be irrelevant because of the smart technology. I'm gonna put that to active. Now, if you don't have a smart battery, I believe you still get some of the telemetry, but I don't think you get all of it. So you'll just wanna have the timer active if that's the case. And then just kind of respect it for now. 1 minute, I'm gonna turn that off. I want nothing at 20 seconds, and I want voice at 10. Expiration, tone, and vibrate, and then a tone every minute thereafter. So we have a 25%. If you go to 40, it starts with a 1 out and it keeps it running, okay? So now I also noticed the throttle cut, they're suggesting throttle cut to -130. I don't like that, but sometimes you need it, so I guess I'm gonna set it to 130. Now I'm gonna tell you before any further, this is why I don't like -130 for throttle cut, okay? Throttle cut's on, great. Let's show them in the monitor. So if you go to monitor, you can see it's below 0, okay? So obviously the stick is all the way down. You can calibrate these sticks, and I haven't done it forever, but the thing is, watch what happens when I turn this off. Watch what happens to this number. It goes to 97. Not a big deal, except that if 97 results in the prop starting to spin and you get cut, that's not okay. So there's 150 minus and 150 plus in spectrum, okay? In terms of the range of a particular channel, which we need to reverse the rudder, or not the rudder, but the retracts as well. So -150 compared to +150. We ordinarily run at plus or minus 100, okay? So we have a little bit of range on top or below within the pulse width modulation range for each of the, in this case, 8 channels, okay? So if you go to -130, it just means that the ESC, if you're like me, you have the throttle cut on all the time. So it believes that's 0 when you first start the plane up. Okay, so you undo that, it's not impossible the thing would spin. Now, why do I say that? Because it's happened to us a number of times. We are in what some would argue is a bad habit of putting the props on for Unbox Build radio setup, because we have a very systematic approach to it and we're very careful and disciplined, except for that. So we're leaving this off because of reverse thrust, and only because of reverse thrust. Otherwise we would have it on there already, for a few different reasons. But anyway, you're encouraged from us, just leave the prop off, don't cut your arm, don't cut your face, don't cut your wall, don't cut your stove, whatever it is, your kids or whatever. Once you've established that a plane is working and you have everything set up right, it's not as big of an issue. If you get a new plane in particular, and you're copying a model over from like a DX6 to an NX8, or from like an older model to a new model like this, some of the stuff doesn't always carry over right, or you may be just manually copying it. Just wait till everything is vetted before you do that, okay? Trust the plane before it burns you, okay? That doesn't often happen, but we just want to say that as a safety feature. And obviously it's always up to you guys. You big boys and girls, you're gonna do what you're gonna do anyway, but we do want you to do it safe. All right, so anyway, getting back to my point, I don't like the -130 for that reason. The other thing is, now with the advent of forward programming, there is a reboot sequence that occurs, and it occurs when you go out of the menu, and it's almost without warning, As a result, if this deviation of 30% below 0 results in prop starting, there you go. You've got problem. So I'm not sure why that is, but we've also tried it both ways, and occasionally when it says 130 in the manual, you have to have it at 130, so we're just gonna do 130 this time, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. It's not just me griping, it's actually a safety concern I carry around all day long.
Do you wanna reverse the gear before we?
Yeah, we gotta reverse the gear. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here to Servo Setup, click on travel, scroll it over to reverse, and then go to gear and just flip that. Now, why are we flipping that? Because they suggested in the manual, and it's super easy to do. So all the different things we did are pretty much listed here or up here. We didn't do dual rates in Expo. We might as well go ahead and do that now. Otherwise I'll forget. Yep. So we'll click this, scroll down to dual rates in Expo. I always like to set mine to switch F, all 3 control axis. You don't have to do it this way. This is just a very highly subjective thing.
6, 5, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, that was schizophrenic. Okay, so we have 5, 10, 20, and then we're gonna drop the rates down to like 90. And then let's go to, well, I skipped elevator. Switch it to 0 on 0. Now, why do you do 5, 10, and 20? Because we just have come up with a setting that works really good for what we like. This is a highly subjective thing. Don't tell me what the manual says, because the manual is based on somebody else's subjective idea. If you like that, just do it. It's fine. You don't have to do anything different. I don't follow this setting. This is one of the few settings I never follow, unless it's a weird flight controller controlled plane, like what was that, Ultrix. The Ultrix uses the dual rates in Expo to actually accomplish some of the flight controller controls. So that's part of the reason why I just want you guys to know why I do this. We fly in the middle. If we need less, we go here. If we need more, we go here. When we land, we set that to the new middle, and then the middle becomes doubly and then half, okay? So that means you've always got an out. That's an important thing to know as a pilot. You always want to have an out. You got to be able to get yourself back to the ground, okay? The difference between a 5% expo and a 10% expo is generally not going to make enough difference to get you back to the ground. But the difference between 20% expo and 90% rates and 5% expo is pretty significant, especially for a beginner, okay? Also, keep in mind you have safe and AS3X on here. So you've got stabilizer, and you can turn on auto leveling. Just that easy. Now, safe mode is not actually on, by the way. Again, that's just an audible sequence that's tied to the switch condition. And then this switch happens to be tied to flight mode 1, okay? So there's many other flight modes, by the way, if you need to activate different flight modes. And you can also set up trims that are attached to flight modes so that you can have trims that are attached within safe, with off, and with AS3X. That's very handy. Sometimes I'll tie a separate flight mode to my flaps. And then especially on flapper-on equipped planes, the trim is almost always a little bit askew when you put down ailerons. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just a deviation in the exact, like, absolute position of the aileron servo. So, all right, getting back to the point, we're gonna go ahead and bind this thing now because we basically have the radio setup done. So throttle cut on. We have all of our flaps set up. We have our gear set up. I want the gear to be down when it's like this, and I want them to be up when it's like this. Why? Because come up with a standard setting that you like and do it all the time. If you don't like the way the manual calls it out, figure out if you're gonna be able to replicate it on a regular basis. If I have retracts, the retracts are always here. If I have a throttle cut, which I always do, it's always here, okay? If I have a reverse thrust, it's always on switch G so far, except for one time we put it on switch A. We're not gonna do that anymore. We're always gonna put it here, okay? This switch D is where I divert to safe if I have retracts. I always put my flaps here. I always put my expo here. Why do I always do that, camera crew?
Because then you can always remember.
Yep, it's a lot easier to remember. Retracts, safe. If I don't have retracts, then I have safe back here because it's even easier to get to, okay?
Set up your simulator the same way.
Yep, if you want to. Okay, so getting back to the point for binding, we obviously have the canopy set off to the side. We have the transmitter ready to go, so we're just gonna plug in this G2 pack. G2 packs are nice because you only have the discharge lead and then you have a smart lead in here, which is what transmits a lot of the data to the ESC and everything, which is kind of interesting because look, there's no smart lead here. So I don't know how that works, but it's obviously got something going somewhere. This is an IC3. This is an IC3. You'll note they're exactly the same, which is pretty cool. We don't see that very often. Usually we have like an EC3, okay? So ESC is initiated. All I have to do is press this button. I'm gonna turn off my transmitter first, just so it's off. There is a way to bind with the transmitter on, and I'll show you what that is. Camera crew, you're gonna need to come around. There's a button right here on the top of the transmitter. I'm gonna press it once, then there's a flashy light. I need to get myself at least a couple of meters away, and this never seems to work since we're on camera. I'm gonna press and hold this button on the top, the bind button, and then I'm gonna press the power button for a second just to wake it up. Binding. Bind failed. If it fails, then I click, scroll down to bind, and then I hit bind. See, and it got it. So, like I said, one dance means AS3X is active. That's the noise, one dance. That's safe, okay? It also did an auto config. You heard that wake up. That's a normal noise. The auto config just happens automatically with a bind and fly. Okay, so let's check surfaces real quick. Elevator's not even attached. We're gonna need to get that. Rudder left, right, roll left, roll right, take off flaps, landing flaps, very good. Okay, we don't know if we're in safe yet. We do believe that safe is not active because it only danced once, okay? How do we know if it's in safe or not? We're gonna put the canopy on, we're gonna flip the plane over. That is the most definitive way to test if safe is on. There is another way, but it's hard to do with the elevator not hooked up. Do you guys see anything happening with the elevators? I don't, or with the ailerons, I mean. Nothing, and then nothing with the rudder. I don't see anything with the AS3X, so what we can do now, that means that we can go ahead and with impunity, we can go ahead and hook up our elevator square, okay? Because remember, we didn't do that during the build. We did that on purpose because we want it to be centered in the right position. So as you can see, this needs to be mechanically adjusted. And then they suggested actually hooking that up in what hole? Looks like they suggest the outside hole for the elevator, and you can see that on this page here, okay? Elevator goes to the outside on the horn, okay? So the horn is right here. This thing will be used also. And you see how it's kind of like just strewn out here and it's way too far. That would like push the elevator way up. That needs to be screwed in. So because of the nature of that, where all that stuff lined up, I'm gonna grab a pair of needle nose pliers, and needle nose pliers are gonna get me in close to the edge of the fuse. So normally if there's enough room, I do 3 fingers. I do 1, 2, 3, and I push and almost bend it. Because this is so tight, I have to hold it like this, and then I can screw this in. Very easy to screw in on this one. You can always tell the difference between the high quality stuff and the low quality stuff because this stuff's always easy to do. On the junk from China, it's always like incredibly difficult and they almost always break. They try to. Okay, I need to go out half a turn. So you see how this kind of has a favor one direction versus the other? It's kind of leaning toward the camera crew instead of toward the fuse. Watch this. When I flip this around, look, now it's pointed toward the fuse. Okay, so I'm gonna try to favor that, and then I'm just gonna let that fall through. You can see there's a little bit of play because it's not snapped, but I think we're about right. Push it in. Look how clean and easy that is. That took like almost no effort. Okay, so I'm gonna slide this out so that it's not quite to the end, doesn't interfere with the free motion. The free motion. All right, so now we're gonna test the elevator again. Okay. Always, well, we got the gear here, we might as well. Nice, very nice. Looks good, love it. Okay, so everything's working fine there. So we're gonna flip the plane over. Man, I just love the way that this plane looks. It's one of my favorite planes, one of the best flying planes we've ever had. And we've had a lot of planes. Now, I do note that this rudder is not quite mechanically straight. See that? That's pointed to the right just a hair. That's surprising. See? Now there's two ways to skin this cat. You can undo this and adjust it here, but it may be a lot easier on this plane to actually pop off the controls here. So just be aware, the cross is correct. That is weird. That seems like such an afterthought. I'm surprised they're crossed like that. But whatever, as long as they're not binding or giving me problems, I don't care. Okay? So I'm gonna adjust this. If you wanna come around, we'll kind of shoot from here. I'm actually gonna lay the nose of the plane down just a hair so you guys get a better shot. But this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna undo this, and then I wanna bring the tail over just a hair. It's very subtle, but this thing is favoring to the right. So I'm gonna probably spin this in 1/2 to 1 turn. I don't know if it's gonna be 1/2 or 1. So if you need to do this without tools, it's quite easy. On a nice one, see how it pulls down? Just don't break off that ball tip, okay? So I'm gonna go in 1/2 a turn. See how I've got 3 fingers here? Like this, watch. Then I can squeeze super hard and brace that rod. Then we go in. Okay, so that was 1/2 a turn in. And then you pretty much have to put this back together to see if it's aligned. Oh, that looks a lot better. What do you think, camera crew? Give them a really good shot so they can see. From the top, see, all I'm doing is aligning it. Now there's probably gonna be, is it perfect?
That's pretty good.
Okay, good.
I think if you go one more, it'll be the other way.
I agree, yeah, it looks pretty good. Now, this is splitting hairs. You don't probably even have to do this. You can get trim in there, but just keep in mind, when you put a ton of trim into a plane with AS3X, then what it's gonna do is it's gonna think you're moving the stick. That's why it's defeating. Because when you move the stick, then the AS3X is voting on what condition this servo should be in. And you're voting what condition it should be in. You overwhelm the AS3X by overruling it with your trim if you get too much trim in there. Now, some people are gonna be like, oh, 2 clicks, whatever. I got 30 clicks on some of my planes. So that's not the way it works. But if you have it all the way to the left or all the way to the right, you need to mechanically adjust it. Meaning, you trim it wherever it needs to be trimmed, like this. When you land and you've got a +62, you could also change the step size on that too. But let's say you had a +62, you come look at this here. Probably from the top, you see how it's kind of favoring toward me? What you would do is you would just do that exact same thing that we did, okay? You would bring it back to center and then you would replicate that setting, okay? So it's really easy. And by the way, you want trim. If this thing needs to be to the right a little bit, that's what the plane needs. So don't adjust that to be straight. Once you've done your maiden, you're done. Then it is what it is, okay? If that makes any sense. That was something Esteban did once. I was like, what are you doing, Esteban? It was funny. Esteban loves being story time, Brian Phillips, RC. So anyway, all right, elevator up, elevator down, roll, rudder left, rudder right, roll left, roll right, roll left, roll right. Okay, I don't know if I can put my nose gear down at this point, so I'm just gonna go ahead and leave them up, take off flaps, landing flaps. Show them how small and subtle the elevator correction is. Watch this. Take off flaps, landing flaps. You see how just almost nothing. That's like so small.
Crazy.
Okay, so throttle cut's on. I'm gonna go ahead and shut off throttle cut. We have no prop. So you can tell it is going which direction? That's going facing the plane, the direction the prop, like looking at it. It's going counterclockwise, which is what you want. Now you can also sit and look at your prop and study it with the colors facing you. If it's going counterclockwise, once you come around so they can see, it's gonna obviously produce forward thrust because it's cutting the air like this, and it's gonna fly the plane. Now, reverse thrust would normally be set up in one of these menus over here, because if you scroll to the right, there's more smart menus. There's your ESC stuff, which is pretty cool. Throttle cut is off. Oh, that's cool. There's your feedback on your battery. Got battery voltage. Tells you your cell count, which is super nice. ES3X, safe limits. So we have to do forwards. We have to do forward programming to get that set up. Oh yeah, buddy, we're gonna have thrust reverse. So cool. Okay, so throttle cut's on. What we're gonna do now is I want to come around here. I wanna get safe set up first. So there was an old way of setting up safe and a new way of setting up safe. So we're just gonna slide the plane over. I just wanna show you that you can technically still do this, I believe. Okay, I haven't done it that way in a long time because I've found that you have to pretty much click and scroll down to forward programming, connecting, go to gyro settings, click, safe select.
Safe mode.
Okay, so this one, safe select is on.
Safe mode. AS3X mode.
That's just audible, okay? Watch this.
Safe mode. AS3X mode.
That's auxiliary 3. I don't know what it's set to. Auxiliary 2.
Safe mode. AS3.
Hold on, I gotta walk out. I can't remember what that channel is.
Safe mode. AS.
See, we didn't tie it to a channel, so it's not actually changing anything. So we obviously have flaps here, we have gear here. Okay, auxiliary 2 is not being used. So what I can do is I can scroll down to system setup, disconnect RF, jump into the channel assign, and then I can go into auxiliary 2 and actually attach it to switch D. Okay, so now we're commanding auxiliary 2, flight modes, and audio events through these positions. Okay, so now we can go down to forward programming, connecting, gyro settings, safe, and then see how it's changing now? Every time I move the switch, it's actually changing from on, off.
Safe mode.
So that should be safe on, AS3X on. See how it says safe off? You can't highlight that. I can turn that off. AS3X and safe. So what I need to do is I need to walk out of here. Remember, this is a bind and fly, so the AR631 is going to be locked down into a, configuration for a bind and fly. You can factory reset to defaults, and then you can do bind and fly or plug and fly stuff if you want. I'm going to go to Servo Setup, highlight travel, scroll over to reverse, and then auxiliary 2 is going to rotate. So it's backward now.
Off. Safe mode. Off. AS3X.
Okay, so now let's go back into the forward programming so we can see if it responds the way we expect. Gyro settings, safe select. Okay, so safe should be
Off. Safe mode.
safe is on, safe is on,
Off.
safe and AS3X are off,
AS3X mode.
and then safe is off. Does that make sense? So safe select is on, no matter what switch position I'm in. But the safe mode is off. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the actual reboot process is going to constitute two dances. You'll hear that. That's the dance of all the servos. That's how you could tell. Oh, I hate it when she counts like that. Okay, so I'm going to walk out of the gyro settings. And I did note that we didn't have a reboot. That's very good. Okay? So if I was to unplug the battery and plug it back in, then you would hear two dances. So the important part is when you're in safe, watch the elevator. Now when I'm in AS3X or off, see how much more it moves? That's the other really good telltale sign that you're in. Now look at the ailerons. That's AS3X, off, and safe. You see how there's less deflection? That is a telltale sign that you're in safe. But the best way to tell that you're in safe, by the way, you do not have to give throttle to initiate safe. It's on all the time. Look. Find halfway upside down. The plane is looking for level, okay? If you don't know what that means look at the elevator. You see how the elevator is pointed up? As it comes to level, it starts pointing down once I go past. It's gonna try to find level, and it's gonna try to find level. So it uses the pitch axis and the roll axis in a safe select, okay? Now, Full safe, I believe, also uses a rudder, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Okay, so now that we know how things are working, we can go ahead and start doing reverse thrust, which is really exciting. So in order to set up reverse thrust, we do have to, this thing is slick. So if you saw me just lick my fingers, I know that's like not proper, but we do it anyway on Brian Phillips RC. I'm not gonna need the manual for this part because I'll show you exactly how to do it. It's very easy. Be careful, don't cut yourself. If you cut yourself, don't send me pictures of yourself being cut. I seriously don't wanna see it. Just don't cut yourself would be better, okay? The only reason I say that is because people literally send me pictures of cuts into their arm. Don't do that, okay?
Then he makes the rest of us look at them.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay, so this is how we do this. So you'll note I have my prop off, so I'm not likely to get cut by the prop in this condition, okay? So my transmitter, throttle's down, throttle cut is on. I'm gonna scroll over, all the way over. I cannot do that right now. If I try to do it, it won't work. You have to do that within so many seconds of power cycle. So we're gonna do two things. We're gonna unplug it, let it die, plug it back in, you're gonna listen for two dances. Okay, ready? So we're unplug this. By the way, these things are like butter to plug in. They're so easy. Ow. Okay. Right after I talk about how easy it is, I like bend my fingernail over. Okay, so step one, hold low throttle, up elevator, left aileron. See how it changed to step two? Okay, now we're into the setup, okay? So brake is not disabled, we want it on. Reverse, brake force. Now, somebody told me the brake force was supposed to be set to like 7 on the A10, so I apologize. Somebody, meaning one of the engineers at Horizon told me that, so thank you for telling me that. What happens is when brake force is not strong enough, it doesn't have as much ability to transition from forward to then reverse. And it's hard on the bearings on the motor, and it's hard on all the stuff, like the motor mounts, everything. I mean, thrust reverse is a very aggressive maneuver. So don't do it all the time or you're gonna break stuff. Do it once in a while, but don't do it all the time because it is hard on stuff no matter how you slice it. I don't know if they tell you even how to do it in this manual, but I'm just curious if they mention the brake force. I'm gonna set the brake force to something. Okay, they don't mention it here. I'm just gonna set it, okay? So here we go. So the brake force, son of a gun. So you'll notice it walked out of the menu. There we go. We're still in the menu, okay? Because you're supposed to use this and this, not that. Brake force. I want to see what happens. Does it like just keep going forever? Oh, so 7? Goodness gracious. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, so cutoff type. Now, I don't like brake force because when flying a plane like this, I want the tractoring effect. But if we're supposed to have brake force to help make it work, I'm gonna show it the way that they suggested on the last plane. So, do you understand what I mean, camera crew, when I say that? Brake force is the amount of active braking where I hold opposite magnets on that motor, stator, and the stator doesn't turn then. Even though it's trying to windmill, okay? That windmilling effect will create more drag. Even though it sounds counterintuitive, it will be as though a flat plane of plastic was mounted here, which is crazy to me still, even today. But if you hold it still, it's as though you have a prop there, okay? Not spinning. And you have less drag, significantly less drag, a lot less drag. I want the drag when I'm trying to land, okay? So I'm actually gonna leave it at 7 like suggested. Then I'm gonna keep, oh, you can't scroll, you gotta use your sticks. You can set this stuff up if you want. The BEC voltage is 6, that's pretty cool. Okay, if you had it wired up wrong, you could switch it. Restart acceleration thrust reverse on channel 7. I think I need it on channel 8. Did I do auxiliary 2 for this? So I'm gonna put it to channel 8. So then exit with save. Okay, so this is the time where you'd be like glad to not have a prop there because you don't know if you did it right. Okay, so now you can walk right off of this menu and you can go through and just kind of check things out if you want. Okay, which is pretty cool. Until you get back to monitor mode. Now, monitor mode is going to tell us I want to be in ASRX mode. We haven't set anything up for that switch yet, okay? I want G to be my switch for thrust reverse. So we go down to System Setup, Disconnect RF, and I'm gonna go down to Channel Assign. Right now, Auxiliary 3 is on the right knob, but we don't need master gain in this configuration, so I'm gonna set it to G. See how it's G now? Okay, so now we walk over to monitor, and you can see G is plus 100, 0, and minus 100. I believe minus 100 is actually forward thrust, but we're gonna check on that right now. And then we're gonna make one of them basically the normal flight mode. Then we're gonna have controllable reverse. And then I don't think we're gonna do pilot fatigue because of the prop. It's dangerous. In an EDF plane, you're not likely to stick anything that you don't want cut off into an EDF hole. Please don't send me pictures of that.
No, definitely not.
Okay? But seriously though, I'm not even gonna show you how to do it. You can figure it out if you really want to, but I think it's super dangerous because you could accidentally have it in that mode, turn it on, it shoots off, and you freak out and don't get to your throttle cut, okay? So I'm just gonna show forward normal thrust, probably forward normal thrust, and then maybe controllable. I'm not sure if I'll do both controllable.
I think you usually do both controllable.
No, forward is forward.
Yes.
Then controllable, and then controllable.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, so that being said, or I could do maybe like a reverse thrust that's maybe less than 100%. I don't know. No? Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. We have obviously got command of that channel now, so one of them is gonna work and one of them is gonna work, okay? Throttle cut is now off. I am in I believe this is gonna go now clockwise, okay? And it is, see? That's clockwise. That's counterclockwise, okay? Can you tell in the video?
Yeah, you can see it hit your finger, the tape.
See how it's going slow? That's counterclockwise. That's normal flight mode. Okay, so counterclockwise needs to be minus 100. So the way you can switch this, I need you to, yeah, there you go. So we're gonna go to digital switch setup. This is the easiest way to do it. Select, put it on G. So I want this setting to be the opposite of what it is. So I'll just kind of scroll that to minus 100. Ah, dang it. See how it went up? Okay, so minus 100 is gonna make it go in the correct direction. Now you could also just switch your G switch too, to reverse. And then this is gonna be plus 100. And remember, this has nothing to do with the amplitude of throttle whatsoever. It has to do with the direction of the motor rotation, okay? The amplitude of throttle is amplitude of throttle as per the stick position, notwithstanding throttle cut, okay? The reason I say that is because it would be easy to confuse that. And okay, so throttle cut is now off. See, we are going normal flight mode, reverse thrust, show the people the stick. We're in reverse thrust, and forward, okay? We can back out of there. Now, if you wanna do pilot fatigue mode, the way that I do that, I'm not gonna show you how to do it in this video because it doesn't make sense on a prop plane, it's just a little bit too dangerous. But we have done it on the F-16 80mm. Did we do it on another plane recently? It was another jet.
The A-10.
The A-10, yeah, the A-10 was awesome.
Yeah.
So the reason we do it on jets is because you like have a 1,000,000-mile long rollout. So you come in, you flare as much as you can, and then it just rolls out forever anyway because they put really good bearings on these wheels anymore. So I have controllable thrust. And you can do this to give yourself a little thrust to stop, or you can back up and back taxi. and then you get into position and you just go to forward takeoff position and you go, okay? Now, the other thing you could do is you could mix that with other controls, but I just wanna warn you, this is a good way to cut yourself. Please be careful, do not send me pictures when you do, okay? So full reverse thrust would be tied such that the throttle would be at 100% in that condition. And then when you go to any other condition, then you'd be controllable, forward or backward. That's what pilot fatigue means.
And I feel like there is more mental fatigue on jets because you're landing faster and
it's harder to
just
land
different.
jets. Yeah, generally. This is an amazing plane to land. So I'm hopeful, I'm cautiously optimistic at this point that we're not gonna have problems with the braking. So I may actually set that braking somewhere in the middle at some point, but for now, we'll just go as per the prescription of the manual on the A10. So hopefully we can back that off because I want the tractoring effect to create an extra brake effect while I'm landing, which that is a confusing way of saying it. I want the additional drag to help slow the plane down by not braking the prop. Did that make sense better?
that makes, yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Normally brake is used to stop a prop that is a folding prop so that it goes out and it stops. And then it can fold back and get out of the way and produce almost no drag. But you know, for instance, on the Draco, they have a high brake setting. And so what happens is you have almost no windmill tractoring effect to help produce drag when you're coming into land. I would like to improve that, okay? So now we can go ahead and throttle cuts on. It's tested, okay? And this would be the spot where you could go ahead and shut off power, de-energize everything if you were concerned. I am currently not concerned. I vetted the system fully. And remember, at this point, this plane is live, it is hot, it is plugged in. I trust myself, I trust the radio system, and I trust that I'm going to be careful. But I've also done this a lot of times, so please be careful if you're new, if you have a new radio system, if you're unvetted on your testing methods, if you're not sure if you're still setting up thrust reverse, please be careful. But we are gonna show the thrust reverse working because we want you guys to see that it works, okay? I'm gonna torque that down really nicely. Just gonna give it a quick spin, and as you can see, there is braking, okay? That's what braking does. It stops the motor, actively brakes it, okay? We can also test CG now, which is always helpful. I'm gonna put this manual on the table just so that when we do thrust reverse, you can see it blowing something, okay? And then I've got this, we'll probably just stand over here. You'll be able to hear and feel it. Or we'll just put it on the gear. Why don't we do that? So, first things first, gear out. Love the retracts on this plane. One of my favorite parts of this plane. Okay, so we've got it on its own wheels, and throttle cut is off now. So we're gonna go ahead and do forward thrust. Oh, beautiful, okay. And you can hear the braking. Okay, so we're in reverse thrust controllable. As you can see, it comes right back to me, and you only need a little teeny bit of throttle, so that's a big deal. Okay, so now that we've gone through the entire setup on this plane, I'm sure you guys are gonna have some questions. And as usual, with every plane that we do, we get lots of questions and comments. Some of the comments are like, hey, nice plane, or great video, or good camera work, which, because of course your camera crew is awesome. And we're very proud of Megan here on Brian Phillips RC, my wife, my wonderful wife of many years. And she films for us, but she's also, we didn't know she was a good camera crew until we started doing this. We had no clue. And then it just turned out she was really good at it, because it is extremely hard to film these things. So big kudos to camera crew and wonderful wife. Thank you for filming. If you guys want to help support us, the biggest thing you can do, buy that plane if you like that plane. Buy that plane if you like that plane. We're not here to say, buy this beautiful re-release of the T-28, one of the best 1.2 meter planes that has ever been released in foamy form, in my opinion. But please do that. This plane is great. You're gonna be very happy with it. Buy the NX8, buy it from our links. That's how you support us. So when you come onto the channel and you say, hey, Brian just bought all this stuff from the local hobby shop and didn't give you guys any credit, And now we want to ask you 47 questions. It is a little bit frustrating for us. We want you guys to be here and ask questions because we want to support you. But at the end of the day, that's how we fund this channel. So if you just went and plopped 2,000 bucks at the local hobby shop, why don't you ask those guys to help you? And then what we'll do is when you buy it from our links, then we will go through the process of giving you every little bit of support you want, because that helps fund us. So this is awesome. Thrust reverse is awesome. Please be careful. Guys, this is an awesome feature. I have visions of people doing things that are gonna get hurt, and then they're gonna take away this feature. Don't let that happen, please, seriously. I love this plane. I cannot wait to fly it. It is gonna be awesome. There's just something about this plane. I don't know what it is, because there's things about it that, you know, I'm not as crazy about as I am on other planes, but I just love the way it flies. It's one of the best performing planes. I love the flaps. They're huge barn doors, but they still look super scale. I love the walk pattern here. I love the fact that it's just the type of plane where you can sit there and just take off and land, take off and land. And you can do it like 100 times and you will love it. That being said, I am going to very, very, very much challenge this timer. 4 minutes? Yeah, right. I'm guessing more like 12. You've already seen the video, so I'll probably look like an idiot now. But what we'll do is we will fly this thing until it's pretty much dead, or like 1 or 2% on the battery screen, which is super nice because you can come over here and just like leave it on that screen and fly, which is super nice. Also, you could set up audible alarms. The audible alarms are kind of annoying, but I'm gonna show you how you would do that if you're gonna do it. You would scroll down here to audio events. And then what you would do is you would do telemetry warnings right there. And then you would go to smart battery or smart ESC, depending on how you wanna do that. So you would go smart battery, double click, and then you can set up alarms, okay? This is where you would set your per cell alarm. Or you can go to, there's another one that's like voltage, receiver voltage. You can just do it like this too. See that? Then you can scroll in how many S you're running, because you could actually run 3 or 4S here, okay? You can do status reports, which will give you annoying warnings all the way through your flight, or you can do warning reports, which will give you even more annoying reports that will come up on your screen and lock you out of what you were trying to see. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it is only as annoying as it doesn't save your plane, okay? I show you that now because there's also some of these planes come and auto config that on. And it's like, oh my goodness, it's really frustrating, because when you first plug in the battery, sometimes it gets the perception that the voltage was low because it takes just a second for the voltage to get picked up fully, and then it activates that alarm. If that alarm comes on, you can hit the cancel button or the back button. I believe either one will actually clear out of it. And if it was a false alarm, and it'll say something like low flight pack warning, and it's a startup warning, okay? So you'll see that. I don't know why. I think like the F-16 might have done that. But yeah, it was one of those things. Of course, we went in and disabled it, no big deal. But we put a lot of effort into these videos, so the best way you can support us is just buy this stuff, buy the NX8, buy that bigger battery, that 6,000 milliamp pack. And then occasionally people are asking us, how do we know that you guys are getting credit? We're getting credit. We trust the people we work with. We affiliate with companies that we trust because they're good companies and they're worthy of working with. That being said, follow the links, the safest way to make sure we're gonna get credit for that. And then also, if you don't see the exact item you're looking for, like this battery, we don't put that on our everyday list, which is in the video description below. You may have to, if you're on a smart device, you might have to click to expand the video description. There's like a million links on there. We have at the very top, there's like about 10 or 15 links that would bring you to like a generic Horizon Hobby link. Just click on that, go do your search and shop there for whatever it is you need. This is a 600 milliamp hour pack. And you can also ask in the comments. I try to reply with links so that people can get stuff there. Also, if you just like absolutely hate this plane, which I don't know why you would, because it is awesome, then we have links for 1 million other planes down there. Maybe not quite 1 million, but we have reviewed literally hundreds of planes. We have 1,500 plus videos here on Brian Phillips RC. If you're new to the hobby, you found the right place. We'll help you get in the air. If you don't know how to fly, we're gonna help you avoid a lot of costly mistakes by following us on this channel here. Our videos are long format so that you can learn a lot in a not short time. But we're here to help get you up to speed because there's a lot to learn. And most of the stuff I said in this video, these guys at the manufacturers just assume you know it all. I don't know how you would if somebody didn't tell you or you didn't grow up in it. And I don't know how you could grow up in this. This stuff has only been around for like 6 or 7 years. So if you're 6 or 7 years and you're doing this, you're a genius. So anyway, love this stuff, great plane. I already know it's gonna be great, and I know it's gonna be great, and I haven't even flown it yet, and I know it's gonna be awesome. I also know that the thrust reverse is gonna be kind of cool. It might be a little bit on the gimmicky side on this plane, because I know for a fact you can land this thing in a really tight area, and I cannot wait to do it. It's gonna be so much fun. The 1.1 meter is a great beginner plane. If you wanna stay away from some of the complexity associated with this plane, the 1.1 meter is yellow, and it's just a little bit smaller. I mean, obviously this is a 1.2 meter and that's a 1.1 meter, so it's a bigger or smaller. The big thing is when you go to a 1.1 meter, it's a lot smaller. You may not realize that that extra little bit, that's only like 3 or 4 inches of difference total, it will make the plane like a third smaller, okay? And then when you go up to the Carbon Z T-28, which, oh, I can't wait to get that one. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be huge. It's actually huge. It's about double the size of this. So we'll be doing that as soon as we get our fingers on it. I can't wait to do it. It's gonna be so much fun. So love this plane, great plane. Get one for yourself. Obviously, this is version 2, not version 1. Version 1 we have a lot of footage of from when I was a burgeoning pilot, let's call it. And if you want to go back and see the mistakes that I was making back then, you'll chuckle and laugh. But this is a great plane. By the way, we never did check the CG, so we're gonna go ahead and throw the flaps into neutral position. Verify throttle cut, guys. Be careful with the thrust reverse. It is definitely a great tool, but it does add a little bit of an element of danger, so just be prepared, make good decisions, and you'll be fine. I'm gonna put my finger right in between the 2 black points. Obviously a little bit nose heavy there, as you can see. So, nose heavy. Let's see how hard it is to get this thing to balance. You see where my battery is? It's right in the center. That's obviously not going to work if you have this size battery. I wanna make this plane more tail heavy. So I'm gonna actually slip this back. And you see that shelf liner is like super, super hard to slide these batteries with the shelf liner, which is exactly what we want, by the way.
But now you only have to use 2 straps.
That's true. That's true. I was talking about it earlier, okay? So I've gone all the way back here. I don't even think that's gonna be enough, folks. A lot of you guys are gonna be inclined to go to a 3200 milliamp pack because you can fit it in easily. And by the way, you hear AS3X is working. You can see the rudder kind of point left and right as I move the plane. Same thing with the elevator. That only happens after you go 25% or more. But if you're in safe, it's gonna work before or after you give throttle, okay? So I'm in AS3X. Also, don't do your mechanical adjustment on your elevator with safe on. That was part of the thing I was gonna say and I didn't say it earlier. Okay, so we're pretty nose heavy, but we're balanced on the front point. I think we need to move it back even further. Look at this, guys. That's crazy. I may have to undo that Velcro and pull it all the way back. You see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
That's like way back there. Again, I don't think you're gonna have a problem if you put it right on the tray, and I'll probably demonstrate that in my first video, because this thing will flare with the best of them, even when it's in a nose heavy configuration, which is kind of weird. Okay, so with the gear opened, it's barely balancing on the first point. On the back point, it's like crazy nose heavy. So let's see what it looks like with the gear collapse. Now that's gonna move the center of gravity back just a hair. So let's see what we look like. Okay, on the front, very good. On the middle, nose heavy still. I guess it is what it is. I'm inclined to tell you this. I mentioned this earlier, and I only mention it because I've had this plane before when it was the version 1. I never once had an issue with CG, even when I've had a huge battery in there. And I don't think I'm gonna have to fly it like that. I think that battery is gonna be allowed to be right in the center. I think. I've been wrong that one time. But you see this? Look at that braking, my goodness, it's so strong. Okay, so guys, without further ado, great plane. You know where to find it here on Brian Phillips RC. We're gonna bring you the best stuff that we can, the best that we know how to. We're gonna try to answer as many of your comments and questions. Obviously, with re-release season, if you wanna call it that, here at Horizon, this plane is awesome. We've been missing it, and I am so happy that it's back. One of the best planes Horizon's ever released, if you ask me, and I can't wait to get it in the air. Hopefully you enjoyed the flight. If you wanna help support us, buy it from the links in the video description. If you don't like buying from the links in the video description because you're in like Australia and the shipping's like 800 bucks, then you can also support us with Patreon or PayPal. It's another way, a backup plan. We've been having people ask us for years to do that, and we just kind of started doing it here a few years ago. So special thanks to our patrons who do support us on a monthly basis. It's very much appreciated because there's a lot of work that goes in this channel. You guys may not be aware, but it is a lot of work, and especially for the camera crew. So thanks so much, camera crew. And thank you guys for coming back for another great year last year. We love doing this for you, and we're gonna keep doing it as long as we possibly can. So keep buying these awesome planes, and that will be a big encouragement to Megan and I and our family. So thanks for watching. Come back for more.